I want everybody to be used for their highest and best use. Because even if you have a long, hard day at work, if you're being used for what you were put here for, what you're great at, what you're passionate about, you go home a better human being.
Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I have a treat for you. We are going to be talking about, yes, team development, staffing, but there's so much talk about virtual assistants, executive assistants, international VAs, stateside VAs. We're going to break the whole thing down today. My guest is Gina Cotner. Gina is the founder and CEO of Athena Executive Services, a firm that pairs virtual executive assistants around the United States with swamped and successful entrepreneurs and executives. Her team of high caliber executive assistants work part-time from home, taking many tasks and projects off the plate of successful people, leaving them free to spend their time where they are needed most. Gina has worked remotely for over 15 years on national and international teams of all industries, including architecture and design. More recently, she's focused on the work-life balance, wellness, and personal satisfaction of busy professionals. She's known for developing leaders and having them rise up around her. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure, and I'm excited to jump into this conversation. But before we do that, my audience, they're saying, Gina, who? They don't know who you are. So let's just take a minute and get the backstory. How in the world did you end up running an executive assistant firm? How'd you get here? Give us a little bit of that color.
Yeah, good. Well, I'll give you the shortest version possible because I am excited about what we're going to break down in this conversation because I've never done it quite like we're going to do it today, and it's really time for it. Athena Executive Services was founded almost 8 years ago, and really because I was in a really rough spot in my life, and I had been an entrepreneur, and I was like, no, I'm just not. I just need a job. Somebody please just give me a job. Let me just go to work, make a difference, have some money show up in my bank account, please. And so I became somebody's EA, somebody's executive assistant who I knew, and then soon she sold her office space. And then I was an executive assistant, quote unquote, working from home. Now, this is all way pre-pandemic. And I loved it. And I stopped being her EA when her firm kind of fizzled out. And I went and found another CEO to go be an EA for her. And I really loved that. And his HR director, who I knew, came to me and said, well, I need you. And I said, well, I don't have any more bandwidth. She said, well, that's okay. Just find me somebody like you. And she said, and by the way, you should open this as a business. And I said, by the way, I'm not going to do that. I've been there, done that. I don't want to be an entrepreneur anymore. And she said, okay. So I found her somebody and we all worked together. And then 3 months later, she said, hey, the guys in sales, they really need an EA, Gina. They're really doing all this dumb admin work that it is not the highest and best use of them. And she said, you ready to open the business? I said, no. And she said, well, get over yourself. Go open the business and go find me somebody else. So I've just been finding the next person and the next person and the next person. And now I got 2 great managers that now run the firm. And I work about 10 hours a week and play a lot of pickleball.
Well, I don't play pickleball, but interesting fact about me, I'm a paramedic. So I fairly recently, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, responded to somebody who passed out on the pickleball court. And that was the first time that I had seen pickleball. So I wasn't even familiar with the sport, but now I'm quite familiar. And apparently it's really, really hot with people who are retirees, close to retirees, and I don't want to pin an age on you, but the let's just say the midlife and up is who's attracted to the sport. Very interesting. But I don't want to waste our audience's time talking about pickleball because we have some really good stuff to cover. I love your story. You're very resistant to starting your business, but here we are, and you're running it. I want to lay a little bit of groundwork for this conversation with our audience, and then we're going to jump in. If you're new to the show, you haven't heard me talk about this, but if you've been listening for any amount of time, you've heard me say it over and over and over again. If you're a solo attorney, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if you want to be a solo attorney, that's fine. You can be a solo attorney. And actually there is place for a solo attorney to have staff, right? Solo doesn't mean you have no staff. It just means that you're not planning to hire another attorney. But a solo attorney, even with support staff, there's only so many hours you can bill. There's only so many clients you can serve. And therefore, there is a cap. There's an upper limit to what you can earn. And therefore, by definition, you might be a business owner, but you're really not, right? You just happen to be writing your own paycheck, but you're receiving a paycheck. Um, if you're growing a firm because you want to grow a business, then it has to grow beyond you. And in order for it to grow beyond you, you have to start looking at the people as the inventory of your business. It's the thing that you sell. I sell people's expertise, I sell people's time. And in order to facilitate that, I am going to hire people to do the work, and I'm going to hire people that I'm going to bill out. But then when we start looking, okay, I hire an attorney, right? Every minute that that attorney is not doing billable legal work is costing me money. It's costing me money, not just in the cost, because what if I pay them just a percentage of what they earn? Then it doesn't cost me anything, right? But it costs you in what they're not doing. It costs you in the lack of billing that's not happening because they're not doing billable work during that time. And even if you're flat fee, I'm not talking about hourly versus flat fee, they could be more productive. So when we start looking at the producers of the business, and Gina talked about the sales team needing an EA, right? Like the sales people are producers, right? They're closing sales. If they're doing anything but talking to a customer and closing a sale, then it cost us the conversation they could have been having. So we have to start looking at the producers of our business and say, okay, how can we make it so that they're never spending time on the things that are not going to produce to move the needle? Because when we figure out how to maximize those people, that is when we get to our max return for our business. That's when we get to our max profit. And the value or the cost of finding people to do some of the things that we want to take off their plate is always going to be less than the value that you're exposing by making them more productive. Whether it's, I don't need to hire another salesman because I was able to have my salesman increase their sales by 50%, or I knew I need to hire another salesman, but now my salesman is producing $1 million in revenue for the business, and the next one's going to hopefully produce another million, right? So it's all stair-stepped, it's all in context. But at the end of the day, when we look at it, there are ways to provide the support to the key staff members, to the ones that are the high producers in the business that are going to really move the needle in your growth. And that's the conversation that I want to step into with Gina, because so much of the world has already accepted the idea of getting really inexpensive labor by going to the international market for VAs. That's not the world that Gina's in. Gina helps people get executive assistants or virtual assistants that are stateside, that are professionals, that have worked with CEOs. And they bring a different caliber of work. And that's the first thing that I want to help identify is, what is the difference between an international VA? I go to the Philippines, I pay somebody $5 an hour versus I go and hire a stateside executive assistant and it costs me $60 an hour. Still a deal, right? Because we're ultimately, the reason we're bringing them on is to make somebody who's billing way more than $60 an hour way more productive. So we don't want to focus on the price tag, but it becomes very difficult to understand what is the person I need. And that's what I thought would be the most valuable for you guys today, is to have a conversation with Gina to understand, when is the right time to evaluate somebody from Athena versus somebody in the Philippines or in Colombia?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's really great. Yeah. I always look at like, what is the highest and best use? That's a phrase I use a lot. I want everybody to be used for their highest and best use. Because even if you have a long, hard day at work, if you're being used for what you were put here for, what you're great at, what you're passionate about, you go home a better human being than if you spent your day on hold with
Absolutely.
IRS or the internet, your internet provider, or figuring out where to have mom's 75th birthday party or booking the spring break for family of four that took half of your Saturday. What is the highest and best use? So I think one place people can start to look at is starting to look at what in their business is the repeatable tasks that they've got to do every time they sign a client, every time they meet with a client, every time they do billing, every time they what is all of that repeatable lather, rinse, repeat work you've just got to do just to have the opportunity to go do the thing you're really, really great at? I would just start that list because that's going to start to indicate, well, where am I going to go find that? And like you said, we are 100% stateside. So I'm going to, what I have to offer you about the overseas and particularly the Philippine VA world is just anecdotal from people who have come to us and who have said, okay, I tried that. That didn't work. Or I tried that and it's working to this degree and it's not working in these other areas. Help. And so where we've seen it work and not work is when, like you said, a billing clerk, or maybe you need somebody to update your CRM or oversee your calendar. Things that you don't think you're going to have a whole lot of contact or connection about. You're not going to have a whole lot of, well, wait, Allison, hold on just a second. This one's going to be unique. Or we got to talk through this process. Needing to connect with somebody to get something resolved can be a real challenge in the overseas world. Not even so much because of time zones. It used to be time zones, but my understanding is this massive VA industry in the Philippines literally does live our hours. They get up when we get up, they go to sleep when we go to sleep. So they've converted to that degree. But issue resolution, one-off situations are really challenging. Now, obviously, if you want people to craft an email on your behalf, let's just say communicate on your behalf to somebody who's important to you, you got to make sure they're a great communicator, verbally, written. That may or may not, you may or may not find that in the Philippines. Because we're all so used to, I can read an email and go, okay, this was written by somebody's VA. And that's not quite going to get me what I need. I think internet stability is also another factor that we hear about. Also, I would be concerned a little bit for cultural issues. So what do I mean by cultural issues? In some cultures, it's too shameful. It's too, I don't know what the word is, to come to you as my boss and say, you know what? I think I sent that email to the wrong person, or I think I just screwed something up. To have that transparency, it would be too shameful to come and admit that you made a mistake in some cultures. And that would be a real concern of mine, because I know what has my firm be high performing is that how transparent and safe it is to raise your hand and be like, hey, I need help with this. Hey, I need to learn this piece of software. Hey, I think I just messed something up, because then we can resolve something quickly. And I would be concerned that in certain cultures, things would be sort of brushed under the carpet. And maybe I'll hurry up and try to do it really well so you won't find out that we actually made a mistake. So those would be some of the concerns I would have. I would go stateside if you want more like what I call a shoulder to shoulder partner. Now they don't know the law, but they don't know how to practice law, but they know how to work shoulder to shoulder with somebody in a high level business acumen kind of way. Like, okay, what are your goals for this quarter? I notice you keep saying we're going to be doing this and we never get to it. What can I do for that? You keep complaining about our whatever software. I'm going to go research that. That's a proactive business partner. That's why we call our people virtual executive assistants. So this interesting thing has started to happen, though. People have found VAs overseas that they like for certain things. And they've said to us recently, I'd just say in like the last 6 months in particular, they've been saying, I don't think I want to get rid of my VA. But could that be my shoulder to shoulder partner so that I can really talk business at a high level with somebody, and then one of your executive assistants, go manage my VA? And we've said to ourselves, okay, well, that's interesting. Sure. We'll take the 20 things you need done and we can turn around and delegate 10 of them to your Philippine VA because that really should be done for $6 an hour. And I'll be over here continuing to do the $50 to $60 an hour work. And the real critical looking, like, yes, you've got a calendar link and your calendar's filling up in the just sort of automated, quick, easy way. But who's looking at it? Who's proofing it? And going, well, is that like a life that this person wants to live next week? Or is this a schedule they're just going to like survive? That takes the critical thinking that is worth paying for.
Yeah. And also calendar confirmation, just reaching out to each person and saying, hey, we just want to make sure that you're still on, you're still going to be there. And um, I've found that communication, I mean, there's definitely VAs out there, Philippines, Central America, Latin America. There's VAs that have a really strong grasp of the language, but there's still nuances, right? It's still different. And depending on the caliber of communication required, it might not be enough. It might, if you have people having phone conversations with your clients, they're having email and written conversation with your clients, they're writing letters for you. You want to make sure that unless it's something templated where they can't make a mistake, right? That's basic. But if they're the author, you want that check-in, even if it's, like you said, the oversight, right? Like, what if I've, my VAs they're right now writing stuff using Chat GPT, right? But still, when stuff comes across, sometimes it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. So you need somebody who, can look it over and be that final edit. So maybe it's just that final edit that person is doing before something goes out the door into the public
Yeah.
with your name on it. So I like this concept. I mean, basically, you boil down three different scenarios where it would make sense to have a stateside VA. Either you tried international, it didn't work for you, right? Or you have levels of tasks, and some tasks just require a better a more. I'm trying to figure out what the right um, encapsulation is, because it's not that people internationally are less smart. It's not that they're less
No.
educated. It's not that they're less communicative, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of a combination. If I had to put my finger on it, it's kind of a combination of language, culture, and not just culture, but kind of like an just an understanding of how things work day to day, right? Like, if you
And
don't
in
live
a
in the US, you don't know what it's like to live in the US, right? Like, you don't understand what going to the grocery store is like, or what driving down the road is like, and it's different than it is in a different country, and vice versa, right? So I feel like it's kind of those underpinning things that, like, we can't really articulate, can't really put our finger on it, but there is a difference in experience when you're working with somebody who understands you to the core versus somebody who doesn't understand you and they're just doing their job.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And then
and
I
then
I call it, oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I call it like a business acumen would be the other thing I'd throw in. There's just some amount of business experience, which whether it's stateside or not, but you have a business savvy about you. That is the other element that I would throw in there.
I wonder if that element being lacking in so many of the international VAs is a cultural thing also, because I mean, it can't be that there's nobody with experience being an assistant for a CEO, so or some high level individual somewhere before, right? Like, a lot of people have previous experience in that world, but it's still different, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's business acumen or if it's just maybe operating on the right speed.
Yeah. That
Like
could,
we 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 make decisions quickly, we think quickly, we're like very like on the move here in
yeah.
the US, and perhaps they operate at a different speed. Um
Yeah. And I think you also mentioned that it's just when it's just a job, like maybe they have 10 clients and they got to get through a checklist of your stuff today. And that you may run into that issue stateside even, but I would watch out for that because when you have an executive assistant who's like your partner, they, it is something like you said about just knowing how somebody lives life, they and cares about you as a human being. How is your day going to go? How is your week going to go? And do I actually care that you are amazing in that meeting on Thursday? And do you have everything you need to be amazing in that meeting? Do you even have time to have lunch that day? Do you have, it's like a caring about you versus being an item on a checklist. And I'd have that concern no matter where you're hiring from.
Yeah, I love the way you put it there, that it's about caring about you. And it's not, again, it's not that the people at internet, I mean, I look at my international VAs as employees. I have four of them. Three, three. We we're in the midst of hiring two right now, but so I have three, and I don't think any of them don't care about me. Now, they're not my executive assistants, so I'm not using them in that capacity, but um, I value them as team members, and I value what they do as team members. I don't think that um, I don't think that any that like I don't know. I don't think they don't care about me. I think that what you're articulating is a certain acumen to anticipate needs
Yes. Yes. I think
that
that's it.
perhaps needs are not that some and that again, this is back to culture probably, right? Like somebody in the Philippines just might not be able to anticipate your needs in the US as well as somebody in the US because the lifestyle's so different, because they're like they just their vision of what it's like to have your kids in school and your clothes at the cleaners and your groceries and like all the whole picture is different, and
Yeah.
that makes it harder for them to anticipate those needs based on how you live your life. So the second thing is to augment or do the things that your international VAs just can't do or don't do well. And then the third is to have a stateside VA who's going to oversee your international VA staff, who's going to be the interface between you and them. Um, almost like I mean, maybe it's not in this role because it depends where in your organization you have them, but almost like in a COO capacity, right? Like you're getting this person to run your operation, but all your employees are these international VAs. And I don't like the word all because I mean you can have a mix, and you can have I mean there's literally place for international VAs in a lot of areas, right? Like let's say marketing. There I mean having a video editor, a graphic designer, somebody who can make landing pages and do the tech, right? But then there's somebody that needs to drive the vision, who needs to understand what the overall structure of the sales system is or the marketing system is, to make sure that all the pieces are put together and tested and so
Yeah.
on. um
And that your vision and your intentions getting fulfilled. And probably 9 out of the 10 questions that these various vendors have your EA could answer. And then the one that they need help with, they come to you. So you're getting one question rather than 10, from somebody who is quarterbacking or coordinating all the players that you've hired out there. I think that's really, really great.
Now, are people picking up these stateside executive assistants? Are they picking them up in a fractional manner? Like, hey, I need somebody for 10 hours a week, or is it I need an EA. Do you have somebody for me full time?
So there's everything is available. Okay. So my firm is fractional, right? We start at 10 hours a week. So some people utilize us 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, but we're not typically full, full time. Some stateside agencies just charge by the hour, much as that EA works for you. That's what they bill you. Some of them have monthly packages. Some of them operate like I give you an account manager, and my account manager over here in the VA firm stateside will now dole out all the work to whoever their staff is one model. Our model is, you get Allison or you get Nate and you ride off into the sunset with that person. Before long, right? They know everything over time, whether you want aisle or window and when your mom's 80th birthday is, and that every Friday you need 3 nudges to get your butt to the gym, and that every Monday is the staff meeting and you want that agenda out to your staff. You literally that's what we do. So we do shoulder to shoulder executive assistant with you in that regard. And there's a third option out there, and I call them the unicorn. So they don't work for an agency, so they're not going to cost you nearly as much. But the challenge is now you got to go find them, which is not necessarily the highest and best use of your time. But if you can, great. They're out there on LinkedIn. They work for themselves. They're a freelancer. They probably have a lot of great corporate experience, and they're kind of a needle in the haystack.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Okay, so I think we did a good job of understanding the difference between the international VAs, the stateside VAs, and where you might want to use them. And this was a great, great conversation. There was another conversation that you and I wanted to have here behind the microphone, and that is this concept of being able to delegate everything. And I think that we're in a place where there's so much talk about delegation, and we're having people make lists of the things they do and the things that are repetitive or not a good use of their time. Say, hey, delegate that, delegate that. What's the next step from there? How does somebody get to the point where they're not doing anything that they shouldn't be doing, or their staff is not doing anything they shouldn't be doing? In the beginning, I painted this picture of, when you're growing your firm, you want to make sure that your attorney is only working on billable work. You want to make sure your paralegal is only working on billable work. You want to make sure your sales team is only having conversations with prospects, right? How do we get there?
Yeah, good. That is the next step, right? So you start off by growing your own delegating muscle as somebody who delegates to other people. And then you get to a point where you can literally turn over a whole division or a whole department to someone. And so one of the first ones I turned over was all the vetting and screening of the staff. I turned over the entire sales process. And it's an investment. It's an investment of your time and your energy. So you've got to start by figuring out what all does this person know. It might be somebody you're promoting from within. Maybe they were your EA and now they can manage. You see them as somebody who could manage all of sales and marketing, or they could manage all of the vetting and screening and onboarding of who knows what. So there is first, what don't they know? So you got to figure out what's the gap between what they know and what they don't know. Okay. Now, one thing it's going to force you to do, it forced me to do, is to clean up your own house. I can say, yeah, go to the finance folder in Dropbox because I know what I'm looking for. But that finance folder in Dropbox is not all that clean, and it's kind of a mess. So it forced me to get my house cleaned up before I started saying, okay, I'm going to send Jennifer over to Dropbox for 2 or 3 different things. So I explain an entire process to somebody. And then I start looking at how am I going to train them in it, then trained in it. And that training usually involves they're shadowing me, I'm shadowing them. That's a whole other podcast, and you've probably done great podcasts with people about how do you train their staff, right? Now, let's say they're trained to manage 2 or 3 major processes in your firm. Now, who you're going to have to be is a little bit different than who you're used to being. So you may have to be a little more trusting because you're now not overseeing somebody doing tasks. You're looking to see, are they fulfilling that process the way I would? The way I would. So what I do is I give people a very long leash to run. And it can be nerve-wracking for those of us that are the boss or the firm owner. But when you're able to give people way more leash than they've earned, you get to find out what they're actually made of and what they actually know how to do. And some things you didn't even teach them, but their instincts were close enough to you that you said, oh yeah, they made the right choice there. Or that wasn't quite the choice I would have made in that situation, but that wasn't bad. You then can find out what there is to tweak between their natural inclination, where they're naturally going to go with that process and what you want them to do. One thing it will require that I'm a big believer in is course correction. So correct early and correct often. And a lot of people, bosses and business owners, have trouble with that because they say, well, I don't want to micromanage that person. I don't want to throw her under the bus. You're not doing that. It's just if you got a ship, right, and you're going from Seattle to Tokyo, and that ship is 5 degrees off, and you don't get that 5 degrees corrected early, that ship's going to end up in Singapore. So correcting early and often, graciously, lovingly, that's not hard to do, right? You can be gracious, you can care about people, you can love on people while saying, oh my gosh, Jennifer, please don't do it like that again. I totally got where you're coming from, but next time, do it like this. And when you give people a lot of leeway, you'll be shocked by what they know. Now, the other thing is you will actually also start to see them do things you don't want. And I recommend, this is a little bit of the counterpoint to correct early and often, which is sometimes watch them light the match. You can see, oh gosh, there's a match getting lit and I'm afraid the building might burn down. But I want to see what's Jennifer going to do. Is she going to notice it? Is she going to catch it? Unless there's something really in jeopardy, I'll swoop in and save the day. But resist the urge. Resist the urge to swoop in and solve the problem. If you can tolerate, if you can stomach letting the problem happen and see what they do about it. See what they do about it. Because people are pretty hard on themselves, right? You don't need to be hard on people. People are pretty hard on themselves. So I let the experience of something, if I can tolerate it, if it's not going to cause me a major legal issue or a major financial issue, sometimes I will let the building burn just a little bit. Because Jennifer will then go, oh my God, Gina, part of the building burned. And I'll go, really? Why was that? What happened? Right now I can be curious. And being curious is really, really important. How do you think that came to be? Why did that come to be? What do you need from me? What do you need from you? Now I'm in support of her winning versus I got to tell her the 20 things she needs to do to win. And I'm a big fan of that. I am that you're going to win at this. Ultimately, I'm accountable. So I don't get to abdicate my accountability and my responsibility here. It's on me that you win in this process that I'm training you in. And it might take a month or 2 or 3. But then a year later, that's how you end up with the life called, boy, I haven't onboarded a person forever, or I haven't done the vetting and screening of people for a long time because of that investment. So it is an investment, but it's an investment in the long-term game called 6 months from now, how many more billable hours are you freed up for? So those are a few things. I could go on and on. I just love the whole world of what it is to have people rise up around you.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, ultimately the concept is that if you approach it as a mentor, um uh you want to you know, just like a teacher, like you're teaching somebody something, you got to give them an opportunity to do the exercise. You got to give them an opportunity to take a test and show them that you can do it. And if they do really poorly, they have to be remediated, right? So, I think it's similar to that, where you've got to give them the playground to work in. You got to let them feel and gain confidence that you trust them enough to take some steps, rather than jumping in. And I think this is it. VAs are not, right? Like when you're growing your staff, I think this is a lesson or a way of learning that has to happen for every business owner. I think everybody goes through this process in some way, shape, or form. Some learn it from podcasts like this or trainings, and they start off doing it the right way or doing it better to begin with. But others learn the hard way, right? Like, oh my gosh, I've got 10 team members, and I feel like every time there's a problem, I'm the one that needs to solve it. Yeah, because you created that situation. Um, Kim Scott in her book Radical Candor, I don't know if you've read it. She basically lays out this idea of, not feeling like you can't provide feedback. It's not micromanaging, but there's a right way to do it. And it's the way the book is titled, right? Right. Like radical candor. You need to have candor. You need to be open to sharing it. She talks about this story. She was working in Google, and she had this guy, Bob, that she hired. And Bob was well qualified for the job that he was doing. And, he prepared some reports, and the reports were not quite up to snuff. So she corrected them. And then he prepared some more reports, and again, they weren't up to snuff. She corrected them. And this went on over time. And eventually, his work even began to suffer. Like it got worse. And finally, she called him in and she said, "Look, I got to let you go. Your reports are always subpar. They have this problem, this problem, this problem." And he looked at her and he said, "Well, I could have fixed that. Why didn't you tell me?"
Mhm. Hmm.
So had she gone back and just said, "Hey, this is the problem. Can you fix this and send it back to me once that's done?" Then the next time would have been better. And the next time would have been better. And and so on we go. So that's the idea. Like if your employee or your VA doesn't know, if they're not getting the feedback, they're not going to be able to improve. All right, Gina, we are just about out of time here. So I want to I loved our conversation. I think that these are both really important topics, and I know that we can probably you assume that I had guests on here talk about how to hire people, how to onboard people, how to train them. Maybe not. Maybe we haven't talked about that enough. So maybe we get you back one day to have that conversation as well. But this was definitely insightful and helpful, and I think our audience is going to appreciate it as they're trying to figure out and navigate. It's not just, oh, I need to build my team. It's like, who do I put on, right? Like, am I hiring a full-time person? Am I hiring a virtual assistant? Is it somebody international? Is it somebody stateside? Is it full-time? Is it part-time? These are all decisions that need to be made. And I think that some of the things that we discussed today might help some of our listeners put some framework around that and make some better decisions as they grow their practice. I'm going to close the show out with two things. Number one, if you can tell people how they can learn more about you, take a next step with you, if there's something that you want to provide for them, this is your opportunity to share that. And then the second thing is, what is one parting piece of advice or wisdom that you want to share with our audience?
Oh, great. Great. Well, to find out about us, our website is athenaexecutiveservices.com. Now, I'll tell you, there is a very large Athena firm in the Philippines. So we get often confused, which is also how we've learned so much about the Philippine VAs. So go to athenaexecutiveservices.com. On there, you'll find different buttons and links to learn more. And if you click on that, you're going to end up in a conversation with a woman named Jennifer, who I kept referring to today. And she's also a great person just to brainstorm with. So if you're unsure, she's a great resource, and she does a lot of secret shopping, and she's happy to share with you, hey, we're not probably who you're looking for, but here might be who you're looking for. So that's a great resource for people. And then an overall tip for people, I think, is just really create partnership. It's all about partnership with your VA. Okay, that takes trust. That takes being in really open communication in a way that maybe you aren't when you very first meet somebody, but just go for it. They don't know you and you don't know them in the beginning, so you can be whoever you want to be. So be the most caring, in full communication person that you've ever been. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Gina, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Folks, we are here every single Thursday with a brand new guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. Well, a brand new episode. I'm not always going to promise guest interviews. Sometimes I jump behind the mic and do a solo episode, but we're here every Thursday. And we've been producing new episodes since 2019. I think we're up to episode 400 something or 300 something. I don't know. Can't keep track, but really, really good stuff. So there's a ton of content for you to binge on here. What I'm going to share 3 things with you. Number one, we also have a YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, hop on over to our YouTube channel, check it out, profitwithlaw.com/YouTube. And there's a ton of content there that's not on the podcast as well. My team has been making a ton of shorts. So they take just a small snippet of the content, something that you can just consume bite size really quick, and just get a quick dose of learning for the day. Jump in there, watch a short, if you've got a few minutes, and instead of committing to an entire podcast episode. Also, if you are interested in learning more about working with us in our elite coaching program, specifically for firms that are trying to grow beyond themselves. So we're looking for solos, or just you just hired an attorney, or you're looking to hire an attorney, or you think that you might need to hire an attorney. You're in the 250 to 300K range. You want to go to $1 million to $2 million, or somewhere in that sphere. Our elite coaching program is designed for you, to help you create your game plan and execute on it, and get success in 12 months. So if you want to triple your revenue and double your profit in 12 months, go to profitwithlaw.com/elite. Check it out, and we'd love to have a conversation with you about that. That's it. We'll see you next week. Happy Thursday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next Thursday. Take care.